All right, we are live. Welcome to the stream,
Welcome
everybody.
back, everybody, to the Top Deck Heroes Battle for Power set review. We start week 2. Hopefully, we don't use the whole week, because otherwise, we'd just be really slow like that other
That
show.
unnamed other UFS broadcast. We certainly have never
All right,
confused
so
ourselves for.
Kevin Broberg, let's get started. Let's talk about Diplomatic.
All right, so this is an excellent foundation. We talked about it last week very briefly, in that it was not a real card. It was not going to be legal with its printed text box, and it turns out it's not. It's been issued in errata, which you can see on the screen right now. It's new text. It's still a one difficulty, 4 control, 3 mid block foundation with Death, Fire, and Void. And now its abilities are E-commit, your attack gets +1 speed, and response 5 plus. After your opponent removes any number of cards from their card pool during the combat phase, they lose 2 vitality. So if you compare that to the old one, we added it during the combat phase. So this preserves a lot of the intent of the card, I think. I mean, I think it still does broadly the same things we expected it to do. It just now doesn't destroy your opponent during their end step. Um, I really like where this card's going. I think you'll see a lot of decks just playing 4 of it to crush people who want to get spicy with things like Shield Ram or Superior Technique or all kinds of stuff like that. It's going to be a very powerful card for very low investment.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things this card hits. I mean, we probably, I'm going to list them off. Some of the ones that I can think of that come to mind that maybe some people don't think of. Your opponent loses 2 on a revoke with this, which a lot of people may not realize. This card doesn't say removes cards from the card pool due to an effect. It gets with cost as well. So if anything is like bounce this thing from your card pool to your hand or stuff like that, or add it to your staging area as a cost, it also hits it. I think that's a major departure from a lot of the cards that they've printed lately like this, because a lot of times it does specify due to an effect, but this hits costs. Other things that costs them think of is Rain Flush Multiple, Superior Technique. So this
It's a
card is
dumb
going to
Superior
hit a
Technique
lot of
twice.
things.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
One of the big kind of strategic implications for me is that you can use this if your opponent is foolish enough to block. You can then use Sagaki Offering to trigger this, because it's still your opponent discarding it, even though you're just paying for your own cost. So that's a pretty nasty little bit of a bind you can put your opponent in that way.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
it's a really strong card. And I think that what I really like about it actually is just that cards like Shield Ram are at their very best when you're kind of poking your opponent, getting on the board, making them lose some vitality. I lost one of my lights. Um, and then they're using them to get ahead of you and then clear the progressive difficulty so they can still play out a bunch of foundations with powerful effects at high difficulty. And this just kind of completely shuts down a deck built around that. Because you're going to be like, if you go in for triple shield ram and don't finish the game, then you're going to be down 6 vitality or more, and then you're just setting yourself up to get destroyed on the backswing.
Yeah, this card is not unique, and it's also a common. So you're going to see it pretty frequently in your draft pods, though it does run a 4 difficulty. But this kind of effect on a 1/4, I think, is ridiculous all day.
Yeah, I mean, you can still just spam this out on turn 1. You just have to accept that you can't go quite as hard playing your cards on 5 difficulty afterward. I think that a lot of the time when I try to go for a kill shot, a victory turn, whatever, kill turn, I try to assume as much as I can that I'll just check 3s for the entire time, so having 4 checks doesn't bother me at all. Try to win even if I get maximally unlucky, and so having a 4 doesn't affect the bottom line there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Moving on.
Yep. You could read this one.
Lonely. So Lonely is a 2/5 foundation with no block, with Death, Fire, and Void. F commit. If this is the only foundation in your staging area, add the top 2 cards of your deck to your staging area face down. And response. After your opponent plays an ability that commits one of your foundations, they lose a vitality. So Lonely is really good at making sure it's not lonely anymore, because it brings friends. And this card is going to be super duper good, I think, with we'll talk about him a little later on, but as a form, he gets to put a foundation from his hand into his staging area. So if it's your first turn or you were recently self-destructed and you put a Lonely into your staging area, then you can F commit and get 2 foundations for free. Which, starting your first turn with 2 foundations, we banned a character that did that.
Yep, and then you can use those 2 foundations to pass control checks, do whatever you want, get a really good build out of your new turn 1, and probably just completely bury your opponent from there. It's a pretty exciting card. I think that I like the second ability as just a completely free kind of like what's the word, a rattlesnake card to say, hey, don't stun me or I'm going to sting you back a little bit. So even after that turn 1 kind of nut draw, it still does some good work afterward. And maybe you're playing Dr. Wily or someone who wants to blow up their whole staging area except for a Lonely, and then get to use its form again later in the game.
Yeah. And with its response, because it's after it's played, are you still able to respond with it and then commit it?
So yeah, if you only have, for example, if you only have 1 foundation ready and it's Lonely, and your opponent stuns you, you respond first, and then you have to commit it.
So you still get the vitality burn off of that, which I think is better than cards like Unwavering Resolve that you can't commit it and then ready it. Because
Unwavering Resolve has an issue where if your opponent has targeted committal, they can punch Unwavering Resolve and you won't be able to use its response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this card. I think it's very solid. I think if they added a block, that would have been inappropriate. Because the card has 2 modes that are only really good at a specific time. But if you're able to use it when those 2 modes are active, it's really, really good.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on.
Yep.
All right, we got Master of Weaponry, another 2 difficulty no block with a 5 check. This one's a rare with Napalm Man symbols. It has Enhance, Commit. If a foundation has been destroyed this turn, change the zone of your attack to high, and Response Destroy. After one of your opponent's foundations is committed by your attack's ability, destroy it. So that first ability seems almost like a window dressing, like flavor text, like you're not going to use it very much. Although I imagine that's a little bit too harsh to it. I think it probably has a good place. But what I'm really signing up for this card is the response on it. Destroying your opponent's foundations is potentially an extremely good place to be. This is basically turns any of your stun attacks into Hyper Bomb, except you have to destroy your own foundation instead of just committing it. But it lets you trade off resources, and anything that lets you trade 1 for 1 with your opponent is potentially very profitable, very very good for you to do. Especially when you have the amount of control over it that you do with this card. Combines really well with Napalm Man's first attacks, such as commit target card in your opponent's staging area, and Stun 2 Stun 2 you're probably going to be able to hit something pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this card, outside of Napalm Man, if you're playing like any deck that runs Hyper Bomb, because that means if you have less vitality than your opponent, you're going to hit both of their foundations.
Yep.
Which, if you're playing a Hyper Bomb maybe on like turn 1 or 2, or turn 2 or 3 rather, because you'd have to have this card out, your opponent won't have good choices of bad foundations to commit. They're less likely to have face downs to commit due to a stun effect. And you could, potentially take a lot of their really good cards right out of the game.
And so I mentioned
I had to scratch my nose.
That first enhance as not being terribly relevant. Upgrading your mid attack to a high is a pretty big deal. If there's any time where you're kind of getting your opponent to be holding a lot of mid blocks, sneaking in a high attack, especially if your deck has no printed high attacks or has very few of them, you really can start get into mind games and really sneak some damage through where you wouldn't be otherwise able to. So I think that's not nothing either.
Yeah, getting anytime you can change the zone off of mid is really good. Because it could put you in a potential situation where they actually can no longer block your move. As we all know, mid attacks are able to be blocked by any block. But if your opponent is in a position where they thought you were going to attack low, then now they just can't block at all. And there are a lot of great mid attacks right now that you can change the zone. Not even including stuff that's coming out, but you can make, just scrolling real quick here, I do apologize. There's a lot of mid attacks in Indians, especially on those symbols, because Indians was just chock full of mid attacks. things like Karamidama into a high. You can turn just Vanal Rossos into a high, Spregios into a high, Helldunk into a high.
The
Ooh, Helldunk.
mix-ups. I like that one. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of
And
options in
you
this
know, if
card, and it's good resource denial.
all right, I think we're ready to move on.
All right, your audio has been kind of funky, so I'm not.
Oh, it's my turn to read, ain't it?
Yeah.
Lol.
All right, you got Walking Arsenal up next.
Walking Arsenal, 3 difficulty, 5 control check with a +3 low block. A Death, Fire, Void. Our commit. After your opponent plays an ability that adds any number of cards to their hand, they lose 2 vitality. This card is spicy. It's a rare, so you're not going to see this often in your draft pods. But there are so many things that add cards to your hand because card advantage is super good in UFS. This hits things like Templar, Shield Ram. Unfortunately, it does not hit Ever Hopeful, so because that is a cost.
Yep.
But anything that bounces cards to their hand not as a cost, anything that draws them cards, it's really good. Making them lose 2 is a lot, especially in a game with Napalm Man. 2 is going to add up.
Yep, and just like with Diplomatic, this card, it burns people for doing things that they like to do that are ways to get ahead in the, quote, neutral game, where neither player is really going in for the win on each other. They're just trying to get little incremental advantages here and there. And punching your opponent in the face for 2 life every time they try to do something to get ahead is just pretty brutal. I think it's really interesting that this card is so much. The costing on it is so much worse than the last 2 Vitality Drain cards. You know, a commit cost on a 3 difficulty is a whole lot more than a 5+ on a 1, or completely free on a 2. So I wonder what I might. Maybe it just triggers a lot more often. A lot more decks need to be able to draw cards, and so it was inappropriate to have it be cheaper.
Yeah, I think having this on like an R5+, I think would make a lot of decks just completely unplayable.
Yeah.
If every time they drew cards or added cards to their hand, because card advantage is king in UFS. It's king in every card game. And you know, if you're put in a situation where you actually can no longer draw cards due to Walking Arsenal, some decks can just be completely turned off by that. They actually cannot win.
I mean, you can say the same thing about sitting down across from Napalm Man in general, really.
Yeah, Napalm Man is a character who just takes your options away. I mean, yeah, he doesn't necessarily say no, but if your deck's best option is to do something that can continuously be hit by Napalm Man, that is effectively saying no. I mean, if you've got a 7 hand size deck that's whole gimmick is to discard cards from the card pool and do things like Proto Man, I mean, Napalm Man's going to be a pretty miserable match for you because all of his things work around discarding cards from the card pool.
Yeah,
Did you discard a card from the card pool this turn?
I think misery is a really good word to describe it. I think that Napalm Man is going to force both players on both sides to make a lot of intensely uncomfortable decisions of, you know, is it okay for me to go to 8 vitality and let him trigger is it okay for me to walk into these Walking Arsenals and go to 8 and then next turn if he can string together 4 attacks or if I can't quite block I'll just be dead, or should I, you know, play my Shield Ram and not combo it and not stun with it because I want to preserve my life total, and how am I depleting his 30 life total while I'm doing that? It'll be interesting to see how he turns out and how players react to playing against him.
Well, you know, the thing is, and we talked about this offline at one point, Kevin, regarding Napalm Man, and we both agreed that kind of my final thoughts on him actually is that he's going to narrow the format.
Yeah, this is
he's going to take.
So absolutely take the time to bigger thoughts.
You know, I think that, you know, there are some what we would call B tier characters, especially 7 hand size B tier characters, who are just going to be unplayable because Napalm Man's in the format. I mean, Felicia's going to stay great because Felicia does everything. She's got the air symbol, she's got Ever Hopeful, dodge, all those things. But if you look at maybe like a low A tier, B tier 7 hander like Pharaoh Man
can still compete.
Pharaoh Man's going to have a tough time competing against Napalm Man, especially if Napalm Man ever gets Master of Weaponry out.
How about BB Hood? She would have a really awful time. Hell,
Yeah,
her enhance walks into this card. Oh,
yeah. So I think those B tier 7 hand size characters, unless you have a plan against Napalm Man, you're going to lose.
yeah. And
And
I mean,
I
there
think
is
that's a
always the
damn shame for
possibility.
seven handers.
You're absolutely right. And if you're a fan of those seven hand size characters, you do have the unbeatable option. Should it work out, the gamble to just dodge it, just not get paired up against Napalm Man. It turns out you have a 100% matchup against decks you don't face.
Turns out that's true. But if you're but that's just a competitive play though. If you're at your local and your favorite character ever is BB Hood, and there's some asshole named Sean who shows up with Napalm Man every week in a 6-person tournament.
Yeah. Well, we talked
That's
about
where I'm
narrowing
really
the format, and competitive play is never it's never forgiving. It's never kind. If you love BB Hood, you're probably already getting destroyed by Dragon Flare. So yeah,
I don't know. It just seems like, for local play, Napalm Man is, going to limit fanboys a lot.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of a shame, but I also really like Napalm Man, so it's okay.
All right. So let's move on to Slash Man. I think I get to read him now,
He has a
right?
beard. Yeah, it's number
Yeah,
55.
he
It's
has
your
a
turn.
pointy. I never noticed that. All right, so Slash Man's
He's got like a Jafar beard.
is one of our first seven hand sizes, I think. Maybe we've done one already, but he's a seven hand size, 20 vitality with air, death, and good. 6 difficulty, 6 control, 0 mid block character card stuff. He has 2 pretty exciting abilities. He has response after the ready phase, skill one of your opponent's foundations. This triggers on both turns, so you get to pick whatever you want on either turn. And enhance once per turn. If this attack has no abilities, add the top card of your deck to your momentum, and your opponent discards 1 momentum. So the second ability is reminiscent of Mishima Zaibatsu Leader from back in the day, and it's a very powerful effect if you can turn it on, taking away one of your opponent's resources, which can be a very valuable resource, while also building one of your own is just the kind of thing you can absolutely build a deck around and start running away with games where it's relevant. And getting to seal a foundation on either turn is quite good. Just having that bit of control over what your opponent's doing. You take away their best card or their best combo piece, turning off to Forester or whatever can be extremely powerful. And, you can hit a defensive card on your turn and an offensive card on their turn. So you play both sides of the ball really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those things are really true. Being able to seal one of your opponent's foundations is a really big deal. There are a lot of really good unique foundations out there right now.
Yep.
And if your opponent can never use them when they want to, I think that's really good for you if they can never use their unique cards, because those unique cards are typically incredibly powerful.
Yeah, if you put them in your
and
deck,
if you can put your opponent in a situation where they can never use their unquestionable loyalty, they can never use their out of control giant, that's a really good place to be.
Yep, and you mentioned out of control giant, and I can't even stop myself from my mind from thinking, oh, that card gets ever hopeful like hell. Slash Man gets to combine this piece of control with all of the other control pieces that are available on these symbols, and potentially put some really nice lockdowns on the board. All right, so let's move on to his asset, Jurassic Jungle.
Jurassic Jungle. This is a 3/4 terrain asset with a +2 mid block. Discard a momentum. Seal this attack playable by either player. Commit. After your opponent plays a form ability on an asset or foundation, cancel it. So, I still can't decide if this card is good or not. The E is, can be very powerful. I don't laugh at me. I can't decide how good it is, how good this asset is.
Yeah.
Because on paper it looks like it's amazing, but I don't know how good it's going to be in practice. It's a 3 difficulty asset, so it's not like something you just spam out for.
It's quite vulnerable to
giggles.
a lot of things. An
and
opposing terrain
to
kills it. Spine Sweep, Necro Driver,
Spine Sweep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The E is really powerful. If your opponent was to, say, play a Navos, especially as a reversal, and you could seal it, that's really good. Taking 6 is a lot better than taking potato damage.
Well, so you would have to get the first enhance somehow to be able to stop Navos from being potato damage. Because your opponent does get the first enhance during their own attacks.
Unless you're playing a Satoshi.
Yeah, there's definitely options. But the default case for this mainly affects. So sealing prevents the card from gaining abilities. So it does fight back against cards like Robot Masters. But your opponent will basically get to play the first enhance on their first enhance on the card, and then you have the choice to seal the attack by paying a momentum. Um, so I think it's definitely quite good. Being able to,
Mm,
a character like Hikaru kind of gets hosed by it a little bit. Attacks
yeah.
like Dancing Flash is pretty unhappy to see this. Anything that has to gain its keywords gets really wrecked by being sealed. And if you can play that first enhance, that's really potent. Um, Turning attacks into Blake text boxes is really nice. I think the R is pretty good too. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of really good forms on assets or foundations right now, and the one that really comes to mind for me is Lion Buddy.
Yep.
Denying your opponent a Lion Buddy, just making it so they can't do it, seems really good because that card I think is one of the best forms in the format right now.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, you're really trading one. You're trading a 3 difficulty 4 check terrain for your opponent's 3 difficulty 4 check not terrain. Just by if you just put this in play, your opponent line buddies. It does cost them a card, so that's nice. To activate it and
Yeah,
then just get
so
canceled.
well, I mean, if you're playing against a good player, they'll just never play the ability. I think with Jurassic Jungle.
Well, they'll play it if they want you to cancel it. If they want to get past that seal wall, so you can have an interesting
Yeah.
little.
Oh, it isn't playable while committed. I did not notice that. You know how these terrains are. Usually they're playable by while committed.
Yeah. So actually,
So
that's an interesting point. So if you can manage to commit this, uh, I guess Bishamon can't play this. I don't know how else you can commit an asset in standard right now, but you can turn off your opponent's ability to seal your attacks give you the turnabout if you can
mhm.
manage to tap this on your own turn.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think this card's just too vulnerable to asset destruction,
Yeah, it's a
and
tool,
I don't think I'm going to run it.
if it's really nice in Slash Man, you got to give it that because
Yeah, it's
it
nice in
basically pays
Slash
for
Man,
itself.
but I don't think it's going to see a ton of play outside of him.
Yeah, it'll see play when the time is right and when its abilities line up well with the format, which I think most of what you can ask for. All right,
Mhm.
let's move on.
Egg drop.
Give him the eggs. All right,
It's
this
yours.
is. Let me reset the timer because I haven't done that all day today, and I kind of want to start doing the timer. So this is a 3 difficulty, 3
Read the card.
control, plus 3 low block, 3 speed high for 3 attack with ranged weapon and powerful 2. And it has enhanced. Your opponent discards 1 momentum. Seal this attack. So, um, yeah, this is nice. You can basically use the powerful ability before you seal it, and then guarantee that you aren't paying anything much for it. And then you also have a sealed attack for Slash Man to trigger off of, and for anything else to trigger off of in its support. Um, I mean, the minimum case for this card is just that it's a 3 speed high for 3 that kills one of your opponent's momentum, which is a fine card, and it's got the ranged and weapon keywords, which matters a lot to a few characters on these symbols. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a pretty nifty card. It's a solid role player to put in your deck sometimes if you're in the market for 3 difficulty attacks.
Hmm. There's not much to say about it. It's 3's the attack, and you can get rid of up to 2 momentum with Slash Man, and that's really good if your opponent's playing like Snakes or something like that, where they can start piling on their momentum pretty quick, or against Felicia or anybody who wants momentum.
Yeah. All right.
Raging Slash. This is just numbers. The card, as far as I'm concerned, 4/3, 4 high for 5 with a +0 mid block, with punch and weapon. It's like cleave with a bonus keyword.
And a bonus -1 difficulty.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to be said about this card. It's already, slash manable. You don't have to do anything to it. +0 mid block is always really good. And 4 high for 5 on a 4 difficulty is just solid. It's just the card's good numbers. And that's, at the end of the day, all this card really is. And it's a common, so you're going to see it pretty frequently in draft. So I like this as a draft card.
Yeah, I think this is a very solid draft card. You don't even have to feel bad about like first picking this card. I think it's that good, and it works great with Slashman, obviously, as an attack with no abilities. And I'm excited for. I think it could be very good in Reese and Constructed, because I believe he gives plus X speed and damage, and you can start having a really big, really meaty punch for really low price here.
Yeah,
All
Kevin
right.
gets all the interesting cards to read tonight.
Slash Claw. So this is Hurricane Upper's Big Daddy basically. This is a 5 difficulty, 3 control, 3 speed mid for 5 with a +0 low block and 3 keywords: punch, weapon, and multiple 1. And it has first enhance, add the top card of your deck to your momentum, seal this attack. So just like Hurricane Upper would reduce its multiple rating to 0, this card just loses all of its abilities, which is basically just multiple 1, and it becomes unable to gain them in exchange for that top card of your deck to your momentum. Um, so I think this card is overall, I mean, that ability is worse than Hurricane Uppers because you're paying a 5 difficulty and only gaining 1 speed. And if your opponent's in
Hmm.
the market for blocking, that is not a good exchange. And you even don't get to choose your momentum. But having multiple 1 and a 5 damage is a lot better than having multiple 2 on a 3 damage because you put 10 damage on the board. And well, I say a lot better. It's really conditional on what you're doing with it exactly. Like Runica probably likes working up more anyway. But having a much better block, this is a solid card. I think you'll see a lot of it. It'll be a good card to be able to pick up or trade for or trade with, whatever. Um, and
This does have one other thing over Hurricane Upper.
what's that?
It does have a +0 low block as opposed to a +3 mid.
That is extremely true. Playing defense with this card is pretty easy. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a solid
That,
role
that,
player. You see a lot of it.
that's all I got to say about it. Actually, it's a +0 low block.
All right, keep on moving.
Deadly up close. 2/5 foundation with a +3 high block with air, death, and good. E-commit, your weapon attack gets +2 speed, seal your attack. It's common foundation. I think really the only thing it does for me is it lets you, play weapons in Slash Man that aren't his stuff. So something you may want to seal after the fact. After you do all your stuff on like a stupid Donovan card, give it +2 speed after you've done all of its other stuff.
Yeah, in a draft you can play this with Nightman. Could really benefit a lot from this actually. Actually, yeah,
Yeah,
holy crap, Nightman loves this card. Like, if you decide I want to force Nightman, like you can take this card really highly because +2 speed matters a lot on Nightman's big slow attacks.
yeah. And because you can choose when to use its ability, you can do the E-commit after you've done everything you wanted to on the card.
Yeah, like most attacks don't have more than 3 abilities on the card itself, and you can always just play those 3 abilities first.
That's really about it on this card.
Yeah, I appreciate Slashman's simplicity, and yeah, it's great. Next up, we got Kleptomaniac. All right, a card with some meat on its bones. I guess I do. I get all the fun ones. Yeah, they just put all the odd numbered ones. So this is a 2 difficulty, 5 control, and no block foundation. Slashman symbols. Looking like a Super Saiyan in this art. I gotta say. Um, so it has enhanced discard 1 momentum. Your opponent's attack gets -2 speed, and F destroy. Your opponent discards 1 momentum. If they did, you may add 1 card from your hand to your momentum. I thought this card said top of your deck to your momentum. So this is a bit worse than I thought it was. But so I think the main payoff for this card is just if you have a pile of momentum sitting around, maybe from Slash Man eating your opponent a whole lot, or being Felicia or whatever, it allows you to convert that into basically +2 to your control check to block, which is a very powerful effect. It's very
Hmm.
powerful anytime you can kind of convert one resource into another, because then you can optimize your deck around building up a lot of the first resource, and then that it becomes something else when you are in bad shape somehow. Um, and then killing your opponent's momentum similarly is quite good. Like I can imagine this being a absolutely tremendous card in a Synco deck because it lets you take away your opponent's momentum, retrieve it later, and then build up your own momentum to use Reform or play multiples or whatever you're doing with Synco.
Yeah, this card, the E I think is really good. I think it gives Death a way to actually use its momentum. I feel like a lot of times when I've tried to play Death decks and I'm playing them for shits and giggles, I just toss all my momentum away because I really don't have any good ways to spend it.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a deck that doesn't have a way to spend momentum on any of these three symbols, this card could be something to consider.
Yeah, like one way to look at this card is you have cards like Hidden Laughter or Pride and Glory or whatever that pay momentum to ready themselves. This is like a that effect only it readies two foundations at once, and you just have to use them to block this attack. Um, and it's not useful on offense, but it's much better on defense. So
Yeah. Which
yeah,
typically, right after you gain momentum, you're on defense.
yep. So you can run away some games if you can manage to stack up the momentum just right. All right, let's move on.
Ready to pounce. This card is ready to have 6 lines of text on it. 3 difficulty, 5 control check with a +2 high block, which is really good for Foundation, with slash band symbols and the unique keyword. Response. After your ready phase, your opponent reveals a random card from their hand. If it has a high block, they discard it and draw a card. F commit. The next attack you play this turn gets +1 damage for each of its abilities. Then seal that attack. So this card to me, the F is like Bishamon. It's like build your own Bishamon. You get rid of.
Yeah, it is Bishmon.
You announce that in the future you're going to play a card with a bunch of abilities, and that it's going to lose them.
Yeah.
And I really like the response. If you couple this with Napalm Man's Foundation, that turns an attack to high if you've destroyed something. I think these two cards are going to work really well together. If your opponent has to pitch a high block, draw a new card, and you're like, well, they're low on high blocks now. Make all your moves high for the turn.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. I think that you can also do similar tricks with characters like Hua or Joe on the air symbol, or just build a deck that's all high attacks is actually really not very challenging. And this card is really potent. Basically reducing your opponent. I mean, it's a random card, so if their hand is stacked up, then they'll be in fine shape. I mean, they're likely to reveal just whatever, and maybe they'll just draw a high block off the top, but it increases your chances of being able to sneak something through. It's a pretty nice card.
Yeah, and with a +2 high block, that's just a really good block on a Foundation anyhow.
Yep. I think I'll be kind of surprised to see many attacks get more than +2 or 3 damage with this. Although actually every ability in the text box does count as well. We'll have to ask a judge exactly how many does Shield Ram have? Is it the combo keyword, stun 1, and then the combo text box? Is it 3?
Well, that's a good question. Good thing I'm not a judge anymore. I don't have to answer these things.
All right. Any last thoughts?
Well, a card that does have a ton of abilities is that one C card from Neomax, Saigon or whatever it was called.
Oh well, actually, yeah, that has 3 abilities, and they're all just like you give your opponent a bad choice after you destroy Foundation. But when you lose the abilities and just count them, well, it just has 3 abilities in the first place, and now it loses them all, and you get +1 damage for each. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, on a 5/3, it turns into a 6 bid for 7.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Which it isn't a terrible return. Not a bad rate. All right, Wild Temperament.
All right, hey, now I'm getting an easy one. All right, this is a 1 difficulty, 5 control, +3 mid block Foundation. It has just 1 ability. Enhance. Your face-up attack with no abilities gets +1 damage and +1 speed. So this is really a payoff card to reward you for sealing all of your attacks. Like this is the best one we've seen by a long shot, I think. Like this turn, it's a 1 difficulty spam cards. You just put 4 in your deck, and you just are happy anytime you see it at any time of the game. And it just increases both speed and damage. So cards like Egg Drop just get way better. The fact that it's a face-up attack means that it doesn't work with multiples, which is good because this would be insane with multiples. Absolutely outrageous. But your attack does have to be face-up to get the benefit. So maybe we'll see some crazy stuff like using Eden cells and looping stuff and then sealing them and making sure that you can turn on all of your copies of Wild Temperament, maybe. But mostly,
I'm excited about this card Draft. Yes. I'm going to draft like 8 copies of this card, and then infinity copies of Raging Slash and Egg Drop, and just give my moves +6/+6.
It's going to be really easy to win games with that. Yeah. If you can get more than 4 copies of this in play, your opponent's going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah. So
any last
watch
thoughts
out
on
for this
Slash
card in
Man?
draft. No, I think he's very straightforward, but there's a lot of things you can do when you combine his support with other characters.
Yeah, I think he's pleasantly straightforward for how many. I think his cards are straightforward, but they also kind of force you to make some tricky choices. Like if you already have a momentum, for example, do you really want to seal your 3 mid 5 attack and get another momentum, or do you rather multiple it out and then deal with that progressive difficulty, and also not be able to seal it to turn on Slash Man?
You could simply do.
You
That'd be
can't.
really bad though.
Well, you can't do both because it's a firstie and a multiple, right?
I said neither.
Oh, you could do neither. Sorry,
I
yeah,
said
you
you
cut
can
out.
do neither.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry.
It's all good. All right.
Alrighty. Let's
talk
go
about
on a
Swordman.
fetch quest with Swordman. 627 with Astrid symbols, all fire in order. He says, after a card in your opponent's staging area is committed due to your effect, ready this character. And then E-commit, discard a non-character card. Your non-throw attack gets plus X damage. X equals the discarded card's difficulty, rather. If the discarded card was a weapon card, draw a card. So, there's quite a bit going on with this character. So he really sends you on a quest to play as many weapons as possible, because you can continue using his ability as many times as you have weapons to ways to commit things, and then you can basically get his second ability with the discard effect for free if you have weapon cards in your deck. Now the trick is finding enough ways to commit cards on your symbol. And that's going to be the real challenge, because if I remember correctly, he does not have a ton of things that stun things in his support. Just 2 of his attacks out of 3 have stun on them.
2 out of 3 is a pretty good number. I think it's really important to note too, because it's a mistake a lot of people can make, is that if you have an enhance ability on a card, you are only allowed to play it once per enhance step, even if you can pay the cost repeatedly. So it's easy to imagine like having quick and precise, say, and your attack has like 4 instances of stun, going, yes, commit Swordman, pump a bunch of damage, draw a card, gets a weapon, then stun you, untap him, commit Swordman, pitch another weapon, plus a bunch of damage, stun you, ready him, commit him, pump, stun you, ready him, commit him, pump. You only get to do that once. But then if you have other effects, so if you commit, if you do the quick and precise thing, then you can commit him for some other reason, say a Kreutz Bloodline or something, then you can keep readying him to pay for other costs then.
Now, I was looking at the UFS Ultra real quick, trying to find cards on his symbol with both weapon and stun. And that's actually I'm not seeing very many.
You said it was a pretty short list?
Pretty short list. Shyness and Strike, Stumble and... No, that's not it.
Hyper Bomb.
Yeah, it's Hyper Bomb.
Dust Crusher.
But there's... Dust Crusher, yes. But there's not a lot that get everything that you're looking for.
Yeah. And actually, I just read them again, and you can pump non-weapon attacks, too. There's nothing stopping you from playing a 6 mid for 12 Chasm Buster after you discard a 6 difficulty weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make sure
That's
you're playing
true.
Chasm Busters instead of trying to pump with them.
Yeah. But yeah, according to my tally, there are only just 4 that are out right now.
Yeah,
That are both weapon and stun.
Yeah.
You get Shyness and Strike, Dust Crusher, Omnidirectional Blade Strike, and Hyper Bomb.
Well, Swordman himself adds 2 more.
That's true. So I mean, you can make a deck that's all those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the ability to get a little more flexible. The really interesting thing for me is how I can commit him to benefit, and then to benefit from being able to ready him repeatedly, turn that into an engine. And some really interesting cards on that line are Land of Makai, which turns into just F commit. It just completely loses the second half of its cost because you pay for it with Swordman, immediately ready him. And Clark's Sunglasses, which is in the same boat, where you just pay the cost committing Swordman, your opponent has to commit Foundation, that readies Swordman.
Swordman can make really, really big Night Crushers. I just realized.
He sure can.
And as long as he uses his ability before it becomes a throw, his Night Crushers can be absolutely gigantic.
Yep. Yeah.
He can count to potato.
Get that half damage action on. All right. So let's go into his support a little bit. All right, we got
Let's make this a fair fight.
A fair fight. So this is a 2 difficulty action card with a 4 check and a 2 mid block. It's got a very straightforward form. F colon commit 1 card in your opponent's staging area, and response after your opponent plays an ability that adds any number of cards to their hand, draw 2 cards and discard this from the card pool. So this is a really interesting card.
That's spicy.
Sorry, itching my face.
But while you're doing that, I just want to say this card is really spicy. The F is kind of to me because it's going to be in your card pool. It's going to be progressive difficulty, which you'll get to ready your character, but now you got to play around this stupid action in your card pool. The R is what I think what makes this action really, really good.
Yeah, that response, the rate on that response is completely out of this world. You effectively, the only cost you pay is the uncertainty of what you're going to draw, because you turn 1 card into 2 cards, and then you pay no progressive difficulty, and you just have an extra card in your hand compared to what you had before.
Yeah.
And also, there is a bit of a trick here. If your opponent plays an ability like How Ryokan or Shield Ram, which draws a card later, you do have to respond to them playing the ability.
Right.
Just like if you were to revoke it or something, you have to do it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the form is quite solid too. I think that there's a lot of matchups where in a late game scenario, what really matters is the last card. Like it's going to be, you're both going to play a bunch of perfect accuracies or whatever, or your opponent's playing a character like Clark who's just worth unimaginably more than any other card is in play, and being able to take out that one centerpiece will really let you make it a fair fight and put your opponent to sleep.
That's true. I think the F is much, much better later in the game.
Yeah, you don't want to do this on turn 2.
No.
All right. So you want to talk about Fire Slash?
Fire Slash. 5/3, 4 high for 6, no block attack with Astrid symbols. It's a weapon attack. E, reveal a weapon card from your hand. Attack its +3 damage.
Oof.
That's an incredible rate on damage. Because if you're playing Nightman, chances are pretty good you're going to be running some weapons in your deck. And, Kevin Broberg.
What?
Don't mean to interrupt the stream, but I just knocked a pile of Force of Will cards in the garbage by accident, where they belong.
I'm glad you said it, because I was about to. Yeah, this card is an exemplary rate on damage. The first card I think of when I see it is Super Mega Buster out of Mega Man support. That had a printed 5 damage and cost a momentum to get +4 to go up to the same amount of damage as this does. That's a momentum. That's a hard to get resource. This gets +3 damage just for showing your opponent that you're playing more weapons, and in exchange it doesn't have a block. So that's a real cost. But yeah, 9 damage on turn 1. You got to pay attention to that. 9 damage for no other commitment. You got to pay attention to that. I expect Swordman
you can't teach that.
He's going to put people to sleep real early in draft. Imagine getting caught with your pants down and eating 2 of these on turn 2, going second with no high blocks in your hand. It's just a bad time to be alive.
Indeed, especially you reveal a weapon, gets +3, then you discard the said weapon for more damage, and they draw another card. Yeah. And he does have some weapon foundations coming up, so you don't even have to spoil what you're going to be attacking with that turn.
Ooh, yeah, that's spicy. All right. Now, can I move? Let's move on to probably my favorite name in UFS, possibly in UFS history. Let's talk about Flame Sword. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm too excited about it. But yeah, Flame Sword, slashing enemies with your 4 difficulty, 3 control, 4 speed low for 4, +2 high block attack. It has 3 keywords: stun 1, weapon, and combo weapon. So if you have a weapon before it in your card pool, you may play the following enhance. Enhance, discard 1 weapon card, draw 2 cards. So this has some weird echoes of Valiant Assault and Shield Ram, I think. It's a solid 4 damage off zone with stun 1, so even just on its own, it's a perfectly reasonable card. It works great with the Robot Masters. And if you are playing enough weapons, and if you play it as your second attack on a 5 difficulty, you get to get some card advantage going. It's quite a bit worse than Valiant Assault as a card advantage engine because it is conditional on having a third weapon card. So you need it, a previous weapon before it, and another weapon to discard, and then that's what you get your 2 cards for. But it has a huge advantage on being a stun 1 off center 4 speed attack compared to a 3 mid with Valiant Assault. So yeah, I think this card is really, really good, and you'll see it. You'll see decks built around this card. This will be the centerpiece of a lot of decks.
Yeah, if you could get enough weapons in your deck, and getting enough weapons shouldn't be too difficult right now, especially, with Order having picked up Nightman and Swordman as weapon-centric characters.
Yeah, with weapon foundations out the wazoo.
Yeah, so I don't think it's going to be that unreasonable, especially on that Order symbol. Now, for those of you who like to play Extended, you're also going to get a pile of weapons from Astrid support.
GG. Can you imagine getting reversal by this? And then getting plus 10 damage on that reversal?
That'd be insane. Oh, bad format.
All right.
Next we have Quake. We've known about this card, I think, since last September.
Yeah, I got spoiled on a stream.
3 check attack with a +1 low block, 2 mid for 5. It is all fire order, desperation 3, ranged, and stun 1. Now, this is not a weapon, so you don't get to, discard it for damages or anything like that, but it does have discard a momentum, discard the top 4 cards of your deck, and you may add a weapon card discarded this way to your hand. So it has, Natali for weapons.
Yep.
And, I mean, that's really the long and short of it. It's Desperation 3, which is Kevin's favorite keyword, and it does have stun to ready up your character.
I will kill you, Sean O'Brien. I will end your life. Yeah,
overall, I don't
really
find
like
this to be a terribly exciting attack.
I really like this card as a design for draft, pardon me, or any kind of a matchup where blocking is bad for whatever reason. If your opponent is a 5 hand size and they're just not going to be playing a lot of blocks, you'll naturally accumulate a bit of momentum as you land attacks, and then you can spend that momentum to find more attacks and try to put them away later on in the game. A 2-speed mid is really easy to block, so you're kind of relying on being able to overwhelm them with the volume of attacks you're playing, but then so it's a matchup dependent kind of card. You don't really want this against Templar decks probably, but yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's a great early pickup in draft because it is an uncommon and it does help you really put together some big attack strings.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but yeah, it's a workman-like card. It's not an exciting crush your opponents with Night Crusher or Flame Sword unbeatableness. It's just solid UFS card. All right. Moving on. Hidden Behind Flames, our first weapon foundation. This is a 3 difficulty, 4 control foundation with a +3 high block and the weapon keyword. It has a stunning ability. After this card is discarded during an attack, that attack gets plus or minus 2 speed. And first after remove, if your opponent has more than 10 foundations, your weapon attacks gain stun 2 for the rest of this turn. So, is that oh my god, that's so good ability?
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, good luck walling people out if they're going to be using the first form on this card. Holy crap. If you play 3 weapon attacks and they already had stun on them, your opponent just doesn't have a staging area anymore. They're all gone, just like that. And I think the trigger discarded during an attack, that ability is incredibly potent as well. If you have a character like Swordman, now all of his attacks get +2 speed, and on defense, he can give -2 speed instead while drawing a card. A character like Mega Man can now be committing your staging area down with his enhance while also doing whatever else he wants to do. And just in general, if Skullman were still legal, he'd be off-symboling for this card. This ability is dangerous and something to pay attention to if you have discard costs. Even if just a generic fire deck could play a couple copies of this card to discard to improve design.
I mean, I can't wait to go first form remove. My opponent has 10 foundations. Then I play a hyper bomb. Then I give them stun 2, and then stun 2 again, and then I get to choose from more cards that they've committed due to destroy with Hyperbomb's ability. And now they're down to 9 cards, and then I can use Napalm Man stuff to put them down to 8 cards. This card's really exciting to me. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I almost want to find ways to force my opponents to get 10 foundations to set this up. Because this 4 is that good.
Yeah. Yeah, 10 foundations still matters. I was wondering if it was going to be a thing in this set after how strong it was in Indies, and this is a great card that helps scale up for when your opponent starts trying to wall you out.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. We've got nothing personal.
Nothing personal. A 1/5 foundation, R destroy. After your opponent plays an ability on one of their foundations or assets that has been played at least twice this turn, commit that card. So this card it's a rare with no block, but it is a 1 difficulty. And there are some assets in foundations that are really, really annoying when people just keep using them. I'm looking forward to someday committing a Team Kim with this. I'm looking forward to committing a Sawblades with this.
Ooh, that's a nice
Stuff
one.
like that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people see this card and I feel like they just say, "Oh, this is nothing I want to open in a booster pack," but it's a spam foundation that has a lot of impact in a longer game. And on turn 2, you just want to open on spams so that you can pass all your control checks on turn 2. So it's good early, good late, and I think that those are some of the hallmarks of a good UFS card.
Yeah. Yeah, this card, I think, it's deceptively good. You don't know how good it is, and I think it's going to be way better than it looks on paper.
All right. Let's go on to Split Body. So, all right, I'll read this card. It's a 2 difficulty, 4 control, unique foundation with a +4 mid block. It has, after you block an attack with this card, it deals no damage during the damage step. So, justifying that +4 block a little bit. And then it has reveal 2 weapon cards from your, hiccups, I don't know where these came from. Reveal 2 weapons, draw 1 card. So,
it's like Searching for Family, Kevin
no,
Brover.
No, it isn't. It is nothing like Searching for Family.
It's exactly like Searching for Family. It's even better. It's got a block. Searching for Family didn't have a block.
I wish we could set this up so you could see my face right now. We have Skype, and I can really only share it with one person, and I'm sharing it with OBS. So what makes this not like Searching for Family is, for one, it's unique, so you can't use Split Body to find more Split Bodies. For another one, you only draw 1 card, so your payoff for stacking your hand up with all these weapon cards you can't necessarily play is not really there. It's not worth doing. For 3, it's weapon cards. You can just show your opponent a pile of foundations. You can show a pair of foundations even, and you just get to draw a card. You're not even exposing any risk, any information, because maybe you're just going to do a build turn anyway after that. Oh, and for 4, you only reveal 2 cards. It's not even your whole hand, so there's no risk, no information you're leaking. There's no excitement that, what if he drew what if he drew a Templar and a Revoke? You might be completely misled about what's going on.
Cry some more.
This has nothing of the Searching for Family magic that I loved.
It has lots of the Searching for Family magic.
I just told you how it doesn't have any of the magic, and you're just sitting there making crying motions.
I can tell you at least 3 ways it has the magic. Okay?
Okay. Tell me all the ways. Tell me all the ways that it has a Searching for Family magic that Improved Design doesn't.
It has the all symbol.
Okay, but it doesn't have life or water.
But it has the all symbol, and
that's the only one that matters. You're right.
Kevin Broberg. Overall, I like this card. It's another Omni block, which certain people who didn't tune in tonight hate because they only think throw decks are the only thing that matter.
Yeah,
I hope everybody in the United Kingdom opens a set of these to use against Rio Gopal.
I like how this card makes all of this speed and blocking sort of stuff, it still matters even when they're playing 1 speed attacks, because now you need a 5 check to block their head crush. So the game's still interesting when you're blocking head crushes with this. Yeah,
maybe +4 is where Omni Block Foundation should be. Maybe 3 is actually just too low because people block with Peaceful Messenger all the time.
No, they don't. I haven't seen
But
anyone play
I would.
that card in years.
Well, Kevin Broberg, you didn't play an awful Ava match against James Stevens in the Atlanta PTC. He had so many Peaceful Messengers.
Yeah, I only played good matches because I was in the winners bracket, and my opponents were good and they weren't playing Peaceful Messenger.
Shut up, Kevin Broberg. Everybody hates you. Hates you so much. Let's talk about Stolen Sword. By the way, remember, guys, the last card is almost exactly Searching for Family. Stolen Sword on a 2/5 with a +3 mid block. It's another weapon foundation. After you play this card, your opponent commits a foundation, which in turn means you ready your character if you're Swordman. You reveal a weapon card from your hand. The next time you play a weapon foundation this turn, add it to your staging area.
You know what I just noticed about this card?
This thing's a wombo combo with itself.
Yes. And
especially when blocking.
If only these symbols could add foundations from your staging area to your hand, but they can't. You know what I just realized that I hadn't at
What's
all?
That?
This card can be played in a character named Raiden or Hua, and they can profit from revealing cards in their hand with an asset we like to call Team Kim.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it can.
That's exciting.
I mean, I think the most exciting mode for this card, Kevin Broberg, is when you get ready to block with it. If you already have a Stolen Sword in your hand, you reveal a weapon card. Oh, look, a Stolen Sword. And you just kind of get to rub it in your opponent's face that the next time I play it, I'm going to get rid of my progressive difficulty, get a ready foundation, and they're going to commit a foundation on their turn.
I'm not sure that actually is how it works. It says the next time you play a weapon foundation rather than a weapon card.
Oh, stupid rules changes. That's sad.
Got him. Sorry, big guy. So this does not work when you block.
That was the dumbest rules change ever.
That's a great rules change.
Your mom's a great rules change.
Without that, how could you possibly template this card so that it wouldn't do that? If we say we don't want people blocking with Stolen Swords.
But I do want people blocking with Stolen Swords.
But what if you didn't? Because that's not fun.
Then we probably shouldn't have printed Napalm Man. He's not fun.
We have to contain our unfunness to just. It's a quarantine zone like Cambodia.
Nonetheless, if you do block with this card, your opponent does have to commit a foundation on their turn.
Yep.
And if you play it on your turn, if you really need to get your character ready again, you can play this, commit one of your opponent's stuff, and ready your dude.
Yeah, it's a solid card. A character like Yellow Devil is completely flooded with things to do, but if he wanted to do that, he could also play it, get some stuns in. And really, I mean, there's going to be some situations where you would play, let's make this a fair fight, just to commit one of your opponent's foundations, because you're going to try to make an unblockable speed attack, and your own, you have plenty of foundations, but your opponent will be able to block any attack you can play, and so that stun one can really add up. And in this kind of situation, this card will be, the best thing you can have. My only disappointment is that I feel like once it's in your staging area, it doesn't do terribly a lot, but it can do some stuff. So.
Remember, Kevin, it has the same ability all foundations have. Our commit after you make a control check, it gets a +1.
Right, you are. I just don't like 2 Diffley foundations that only have that ability. But
that's, yeah. I mean, it's still a weapon you can discard for damage.
Actually, if you're drawing a bunch of cards, and you're playing, let's say, like 20 or more weapon foundations, this really does just give you a bunch of free foundations on your attack turn, as you play an attack, reveal your weapon foundation, play the weapon foundation, bring it down. Now you just have an extra ready foundation. Then you play another attack, reveal another weapon foundation, bring it down, jerk off, hooray!
Hooray! Oh, yeah, it's like that one Felicia attack. It's like build your own
cat spike.
Build your own cat spike, except with weapons.
Pretty much, yeah. And I'm coming around on this card. I like this. I'm starting to like this a lot, and especially with the Nightman Foundation, which is E-flip, reveal the top 2 if you have any weapons, draw those. If you have a deck that's got 40 or more weapons in it, you could really go off.
Mm-hmm. Now with that, Kevin Broberg, it is now 9:30.
All right, so we did it. We got through Swordman.
Woohoo! So. We'll be starting again tomorrow night with Tengu Man. We only have just Tengu Man, Tomahawk Man, Turbo Man, and Yamato Man left.
Yeah.
So we are getting towards the home stretch. I bet you we get done sometime on Wednesday.
Yep, probably not an hour, and probably won't take the whole hour on Wednesday, so we'll have some time for the normal Top Deck Heroes news hour and upcoming events and stuff. If we're
Sounds good.
in for that. All right.
So
Thanks for watching,
I think with
everybody.
that, we'll call tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same channel.
All right. Bye.
Bye.